Like a lovely formation of soldiers on Republic Day, the Indy Alliance members have marched gracefully into the BJP's trap on the issue of Ram Mandir invitations. You would think that the opposition parties would by now have had a unified, cohesive, prudent way to navigate this emotive and sticky issue right before the general elections, but no. They've decided it's probably just simpler to dive headlong into the BJP's trap like they've been doing practically all year long and all decade long, in fact. Which is why you now have a situation where Sharad Pawar says he hasn't been invited and that the BJP is doing Mandir politics. Sita Yechury has declined the invitation, saying he opposes the politicization of Ram Mandir. Shashi Tharoor says temples are not the government's business and that going to the temple is an individual affair, not a party affair, even as we come to know that Sonia Gandhi is likely to be attending. Mamata Banerjee has been invited but is likely to skip the event altogether. Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav has said only God can choose who does darshan, even though one of his MPs has aggressively attacked the event. Supriya Sule has said the BJP cannot deny that there's politics over the mandir. Uddhav Thackeray's right hand Sanjay Raut says the BJP has kidnapped Lord Ram, saying the Uddhav Sena will go after the inaugural event. Sam Pitroda, whose intemperate words in 2019 sent the Congress scrambling to firefight, is back again to ask whether Ram Mandir is a real issue and wondering why it's being state-sponsored by the Prime Minister. The IUML, an ally of the Congress party, says it's a big BJP trap that must be avoided. It's not like the inauguration of the Ram Mandir is some surprise event, viewer. The date has been known for months. It has been known perhaps even for years that the inauguration of the Mandir would be timed for just before this election. And yet the opposition finds itself thrust in an uncomfortable spotlight. Here individual leaders are fumbling to come up with explanations or excuses. Frankly, leaders like Sharad Pawar and Uddhav Thackeray, in my opinion, are wasting their time by describing the Mandir inauguration as a political event. Let's be clear, of course it's a political event. Of course the Mandir's opening has been timed before the elections for maximum political benefit. But that's basic stuff that doesn't need decades in politics to discern or pronounce. The Aam Aadmi and Aam Mahila know what's political and what's not. But the Aam Aadmi and Mahila also recognize the significance of the event beyond all the politics. Politicians and parties attaching themselves to events or monuments is scarcely new. Modi isn't the first one to do it. But even after a history of controversy and acrimony, can any opposition leader call the Ram Mandir consecration purely political? The hesitation in the opposition's response to the invitations defines this dilemma. On the one hand, the temptation to use this as an occasion to bash the BJP and Modi and paint them as mindless Mandir maniacs. But in their eagerness to score a hit on the BJP and Modi, the opposition merely cedes space to the Prime Minister and confirms what the BJP has always said about the opposition, that they see all things through the prism of politics, that the opposition is full of Chunavi Hindus who cannot hang up their political boots even for a single day in order to be part of a historic event that most opposition leaders believe is the case. A thread of acrimony over the timeline of the Ram Mandir will never really evaporate, viewer. But surely the rise of the Ram Mandir offered the opposition an opportunity to demonstrate that it is capable of rising above the daily scrum of politics and seize the precious symbolism of manifesting unity, unanimity, and the faith of millions. This is something that simply cannot be denied. Those who say this pure devotion bereft of politics are being totally disingenuous. The Ram Mandir has always had a parallel political track through its journey. But those who only see politics in the Ram Mandir's history, its timeline, and the chosen time of consecration are belittling and dismissing the faith and joy of millions of devotees in India and across the world, for whom the Ram Mandir is not some Sunday sightseeing destination, but literally an article of faith. For them, the rise of this Mandir is seen beyond what political benefits accrue to which party. The irony in all of this, viewer, is plain to see. The BJP stands to end up looking fully devotional, fully immersed in the astha of the occasion, while the opposition ends up looking defensive, petulant, and underconfident of occupying space that shouldn't, frankly, belong to any single party, but belongs to millions of the faithful who see the mandir as beyond politics. It is the vacation of this space that has permitted the BJP to own the Ram Mandir almost wholly. It is this vacation of space that has allowed the BJP to blur out the obvious politics of the occasion and allow the hero image to be one of devotion. It is this juvenile vacation of space that permits the Prime Minister to fully claim the mantle of being Hindu Hriday Samrat. It's almost like the BJP plays the opposition like a Pied Piper. And it is troubling for democracy at large that the opposition doesn't have the integrity and self-confidence to stand up and be counted during this ceremony. If the Indy Alliance was truly a cohesive, self-assured alliance, all leaders invited wouldn't waste time looking diffident, looking reluctant, looking hesitant. They would allow the spotlight to linger on them. They wouldn't allow the spotlight, rather, to linger on them. As politicians whose power flows from elections and the electorate, they gain nothing from allowing the spotlight of confusion to hover over them, while disparate voices spout contradictory and self-defeating excuses. Even politicians in the wilderness, like Kapil Sibal, who were actually part of the legal war, are now busy writing poems saying the mandir is the BJP's big show-off. It is precisely this kind of silly, defensive walkover that clears the decks for the BJP to trumpet the Ram Mandir even subliminally as their electoral delivery. And let's be clear, there is nothing subliminal about what's going on. This is an opportunity for the opposition to grab back that space. They spend all their time saying the BJP is no custodian of the Hindu faith and Modi is nobody to issue certificates on Hinduness. Both things are correct. Well, this is the opposition's opportunity to put its money where its mouth is, stop the rhetoric, and demonstrate that not everything is about politics and that the opposition can stand up and be counted where it matters. And that the opposition most definitely doesn't need certificates. Will it do so? Is sadly a separate thing altogether. Because viewer, in India, the year 2024 will be almost entirely about the general election. Nobody can think of it otherwise, because the big shadow of what is to come in 2024 is the national general election. For me and others in the media, it means an almost overwhelming focus on the campaign, then the results, and then the first months of the next Sarkar. For weeks to weeks now, and especially following the elections in the Hindi heartland states, you've been hearing a near unanimous view that the 2024 verdict is sealed. Is it sealed? We've also been hearing that Narendra Modi is cruising towards another big victory and cementing his legacy as only the second Prime Minister after Nehru to win a third term in this country. Now, viewer, you know me. I'm not a political animal or a psephologist. Some people believe I am. So I don't really make predictions about elections. But what I can see, and what millions can probably also see, is that Modi towers above our current political class. Not just because he is an extremely popular politician with an uncanny ground connect, but very importantly because the opposition has, for 9 years now, uninterruptedly fueled the cult of Narendra Modi. Let me repeat that in case you've heard me wrong. For 9 years now, the opposition has had an active part in uninterruptedly fueling and creating the cult of Narendra Modi, and for that, Modi should in part be thankful to the opposition. Let me repeat it in another way, a third way for you. Modi owes his stature in many ways to the words and actions of an opposition that even 10 years later hasn't quite figured out how to take him on and deal with him. In the beginning years after 2014, there was a sense of shock and dismay over the scale of the so-called tsunami, which was understandable, given that Modi had led the BJP to a victory that few had imagined possible. It is understandable equally that the opposition campaign against Modi after his first term between 2014 and 2019 was one that was largely crafted from negativism, a clarion call to the voter that the electorate had screwed up by giving Modi a chance at all, that his ideas of innovative governance had disrupted structures with things like demonetization, and that he ought to be bundled out so that the familiar old ways can return to the seats of power. The Congress even garnished its wholly negative campaign with the suggestion that the Prime Minister is a thief, labeling him, the Chaukidar, as a chore over allegations of corruption in the Rafale deal. The electorate, as you saw, viewer, contemptuously rejected the Congress party campaign, allowing Modi to storm back to power with even greater numbers. There are many in the opposition who explain the 2019 victory as a Balakot victory, that the opposition stood no chance against muscular nationalism, that the mood had turned. In my view, this is delusion of a very damaging kind. To think that India's response to the Pulwama terror attacks could color an entire electorate in a national election is to admit total cluelessness about how India really votes. It is to fool yourself about what you're really up against as the opposition. It is to take your eye off the real target. It is to alleviate your sense of what is really ahead of you. If you're going to craft your next steps with the assumption that there's nothing you could have done post-Balakot, then you have failed in your duty as an opposition, as the opposition did indeed do in the run-up to 2019. Of course, the BJP has been defeated in some state elections. They are not invulnerable, they are not undefeatable, but I'm talking about the figure of Modi himself. If a Prime Minister enjoys abnormally high popularity ratings a decade into office, amidst what would normally be heavy-duty incumbency headwinds, then there are two possibilities, viewer, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Both can be true at the same time as well. Number one, that he has been a good administrator, smart with his politics, and delivered admirable governance to the electorate. The second possibility is that no matter what Modi has done, good or bad, the opposition simply hasn't managed to offer an alternative to the figure of Modi. I'm not for a moment suggesting that Modi needs to be taken on by another Modi-like figure and that the opposition has failed to find a face. History has shown that faces aren't always necessary to take on even very popular prime ministers. You know who I'm talking about. But the opposition has been so hypnotically obsessed with the figure and the individual Modi, the personality of Modi, the cult of Modi. It has simply not spent enough time crafting a narrative that provides an alternative vision for India. If you're going to ask the electorate to vote out Modi, it cannot all be negative. It has to be about, okay, if not Modi, then what? It has been so immersed for a decade in attempting to paint Modi as a corrupt crony that the opposition has forgotten the legacy of corruption and crony capitalism that was carved out of independent India by the very opposition parties now pointing those fingers. First it was Rafale, now it's Adani. Those who literally invented Indian crony capitalism and laid the foundation for the overlap of big business with politics are now on the streets crying blue murder. It's not about whether these allegations are true or not. It's about whether these parties are in a position to be taken seriously by the electorate as they point those fingers. I am not for a moment, viewer, suggesting that these allegations cast by the opposition don't merit debate or investigation, and investigations are indeed happening. I'm only saying that the opposition has missed the bigger picture, that utilizing all your machinery to discredit one individual leaves you with precious little bandwidth to paint an enticing picture for your voters. Which is why when you zoom out of the current Indian political battle space, it looks like a scattered bunch of frustrated, out-of-power netas attempting to drag down a very popular leader. The mechanics of democracy mean that elections are your only barometer for success, like it or not. And why not? Since when did elections become such a bad thing? Since when did elections become a bad word? Elections are literally the will of the people, which is why it truly stupefies me that the Congress's next Bharat Nyaya Yatra in 2024 from Manipur to Mumbai is being described by every Congress leader as a yatra that has nothing to do with politics or elections. Nothing to do with politics? Seriously? Since when did politics become an undesirable thing in this country? Since when did elections become something to not target? If you're in politics, elections are your test. It's like an annual exam. Why be so defensive about acting politically towards an approaching election? Surely voters want to know that you are interested in winning an election, that you're interested in being battle ready, that you're focused on actually delivering the goods. Politics is the brain, the liver, the connective issue of every democracy. Or is the opposition openly ceding even election and political space to Modi and the BJP? I know what some of you may be thinking. Shiv is just indulging in another round of opposition bashing. But you viewer know me. You and I know each other. We have a relationship. I don't take sides, and I certainly don't owe allegiance to any party or leader, which is why I remain eternally perplexed over how a large number of seasoned politicians still expend all of their energies trying to dismantle the cult of Modi directly, rather than invest in a vision that can at least begin to give the electorate a second option. This is the third time I've said it in this take, because that is how little of it is actually happening. The Indy Alliance, in my view, is a very, very good thing. It's a very good thing, and I will say that over and over again. It provides a structure for an opposition that has been bogged down, scattered, dispirited, and largely ineffective against the runaway rise of a popular leader like Narendra Modi. The opposition has been so obsessed with the figure of Modi, it has willingly wasted time, resources, and ammunition walking into a litany of traps neatly laid for them by Modi's BJP. Whether it was the Ashoka Alliance on the new parliament building or rumors that India was being renamed Bharat, Modi has demonstrated that the opposition is obsessed with his every move and sees evil in everything he does and sees bad in all around him, and is now just a band of trigger-happy individuals driven by a personal irritation and distaste for the individual Modi rather than the government he leads. And yet, the Indy Alliance is a good thing. It has made a good start. I don't agree with those who believe that the alliance was formed too late, or that it's simply a band of frustrated netas finding common cause against a formidable political monolith like Modi. In fact, I see the formation of the Indy Alliance as perhaps the first sign in a decade that the opposition has acknowledged the challenge and the scale of the challenge in front of it. The first sign that the opposition sees that this is an election where its campaign must pull away from simply being an obsessive interrogation of Modi himself and provide a vision to take to the people. The first sign that the opposition can, for the first time in a decade, stop being reactive and begin to lead the leader, or at least try to set the agenda and lead the leader. But there are already signs that this is wishful thinking, aren't there, viewer? Within days of the Indy Alliance boasting about not having a prime ministerial face, that this lack of a face was in fact what made this fight special, that it had many potential faces to choose from, and then just days later, you had two prominent alliance members propose the name of Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge as a prime ministerial face of the Indy Alliance. I remember thinking, wait, when they said they didn't have a face and had many to choose from, that actually sounded interesting. It was evocative because it did not play into the hands of the BJP. But now, the name of Kharge comes forward. In other words, just when the alliance was beginning to start offering a different vision from the kind of titanic presidential-style battle of personalities that Modi and the BJP obviously relish, the opposition's lack of confidence in that strategy saw these names suddenly start to pop up. Whether it is Kharge, whether it is Mamata, whether it is Nitish Kumar, all of it is now playing out in the open. Even as political pundits see this as a minor masterstroke by the alliance, since Kharge is described as someone who is not as attackable as other heavyweights in the alliance, I imagine Modi must have had a quiet chuckle at this turn of events. It must have come as a source of satisfaction for him. Because there's an old saying, you cannot lose if you do not play. That may be an exaggeration when it comes to elections, because of course you'll lose if you do not play. But by even suggesting the name of Kharge, the Indy Alliance, in my view, has admitted that it is not confident of fighting Modi with an alternate vision, with issues, or with a cohesive chain reaction of micro-elections, rather than an overwhelming national one-to-one head-to-head fight. All things said, democracy needs a big, credible fight. I'm a firm believer in the goodness of elections, the true fist of people power. As a journalist and a citizen, what more can one ask for than a well-fought 2024 election? Ours is a country where all of us frequently think, bahut politics hai. And in many ways, that is actually true. We're frequently embroiled in the fights that arise from the act of politics, frequently bogged down by the he said, she said, the face-offs, the crossfires, what someone said in a rally, how they responded. For 2024, I look forward to democracy. That may sound like a cliche, viewer, but I want you to think about those words when I finish. Because for all the things that happen in this amazing country of ours, as all politicians, especially one, always say, Janata Janardhan hai. Thank you for listening.